Hello, my fellow Extraordinary Americans. I'm Samaddar, and this is Extraordinary America. What is Extraordinary America about? You see, American identity is about freedom, the opportunity for a better life, and the pursuit of happiness. Welcome to Extraordinary America. Michael, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Michael, for taking the time to do this. So, Michael, can you, for the sake of me and the audience, tell a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started?
Yeah, so I'm 38 now. Born in 85 in Toledo, Ohio. I was born and raised there. I was there until I was 18. I enlisted in the military. I was in school to be an aircraft mechanic, and during my second or third week of school, the planes hit the Twin Towers. So that completely changed the landscape of the aviation industry. So I ended up a few years later joining the Air Force to try to get some good experience. And then after the Air Force, I kind of bounced around waiting for the new GI Bill to start, and then I kind of started putting some of the skills I gained while being in the Air Force into play, and started kind of innovating and inventing and trying to find a passion in life, and that's how I got into entrepreneurship and sustainability.
So, Michael, your journey is very interesting. Like you started from the Air Force and then you ultimately went to Poland and you started your businesses. Can you tell the strategic vision you had from the time you joined the army to the point where you started doing your own business and doing entrepreneurship? And how did the vision for your life and your career evolve over the years?
Yeah. So, if you go back to being 15, right? I'm 15, the planes hit the Twin Towers. My dream of making $40 an hour in within 3 years, so after finishing the school, went down the toilet. And so I joined the Air Force, and I maintain myself, I don't become like I mean, it was the Air Force, right? It wasn't like the Marines or anything. So I maintain somewhat of my own original personality without being too strict, right? I in the Air Force, I got taught Six Sigma, and I thought, I'm 20 years old. I'm like, by the time I'm 25, I'm gonna have three kids. I'm gonna have a snowmobile, jet skis, and a SUV, and all that stuff. And none of that ended up happening. Instead, fast forward to actually being 25, I'm now in Southern California, um, completely unsure of what I'm actually going to do with my life, right? Like prior to that, I thought I was going to be a chiropractor. Like, so after transitioning from the Air Force, I thought I'm going to go to school to be a chiropractor. But then I realized I, I didn't want to start from zero at basically the age of 30, right? After finishing school with all of that debt. And then you can only make money when you're seeing people, so I didn't want to have a solopreneur thing, right? So I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And that kind of um, made me realize that I wanted to be a business owner, not a small business owner, right? If people are familiar with his four quadrants: employee, small business, big business, and investor. So it's like,
Yeah,
who wouldn't want to be a big business, right? And so
yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, how can I like rearrange my life to where I can make jobs essentially, right? And so like for me, like that's the core focus of entrepreneurship, is making jobs. Like the more jobs I can create, the more money I get to take home. And so um when I immediately kind of ran away from the idea of chiropractor, I started looking at agriculture, and I started looking at agriculture in the lens of Six Sigma lean. And I started looking at it going, okay, where's the waste? Where can things be more efficient? Where has innovation stopped? And so I started looking at like every type of greenhouse I could find. Like I went into geodesic domes and standard greenhouses and in-ground greenhouses and all this stuff. And I fell in love with regenerative agriculture, and that just, it slowly transformed. And I ended up, while being in Southern California, I took this course for veterans at UCLA for entrepreneurship, and that's what really just like lit the fuse. Like I knew for years prior. So this is 2011 when I'm at UCLA, but pretty much from 2007 until 2011, that's 4 years. I'm going, I need to do something. I need to do something. what's it going to be, you know?
Mhm.
And so I invented a product, and I thought, okay, I'm going to take this to market, and I'm going to try to sell it, and we'll see what happens, and then I can employ people, you know, building this product, and then I can employ people selling this product, and that it's always been about creating stuff and creating jobs, and yeah, sustainability has become more and more focus of that, but yeah.
So, Michael, like your journey is very interesting because a lot of people they would not be even thinking about entrepreneurship because there's like so many risks involved. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much doubt. Even like though you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, a lot of people read it, but like the to take that jump into this world and like to go through that journey where you're even like inventing products is amazing. So my question to you is, what is the motivational factor that would drive you forward, like your why, even when there's potentials of massive setbacks and things not working out.
Yeah, I think that I guess it just depends on how you want to define risk, you know? Like these days, I find having a job to be risky, you know? It's
I
like
love your
you could
perspective.
you could I mean, yeah, but it's true though, right? So it's like you get a job, and you're kind of like standing in a river, and the river's like flowing around you, and everything's constantly changing, and you're never standing in the same river twice, kind of. And it's like one day someone younger shows up, and if you don't put yourself in the kind of position to where you are absolutely indispensable, then you're disposable. You know what I mean? And that's the world we live in today. Like, we don't live in this World War II era where people grow up through, the World War II, Vietnam, Korean War era where everyone's going to work at the same place for 40 years and get a pension. You know what I mean? Like, people, the turnover is like 2 to 3 years. People are getting fired. People are,
It's
constantly
ruthless.
growing. And so, yeah, how do you define risk? So for me, I think a smaller risk, like if you can believe in yourself, then like it, I mean, basically, like if you're not useless, you can succeed in entrepreneurship. Like, you mostly just have to show up. Like 80% of the job is doing what you say you're going to do, communicating if you can't, and not avoiding it, and just showing up. You know what I mean? So it's like you'd be surprised at, like, a company will be like, "Hey, bid for a job." So they put out the bids, and 50 companies apply. 25 of them actually put in applications. 15 of those are totally half-assed. 10
Mhm.
of them are great, and then like five stick out. And then from those five that get picked, you end up picking the most competent person. And so it's like, I think a lot of people who are afraid of entrepreneurship, and people who just want to have that steady paycheck, they're just the kind of person maybe who hasn't taught themselves like how to delegate their own lives. Like, self-management is a big deal. We all know the worst employee we've ever met. You know what I mean? And a good employee is barely better than that person sometimes. And so I don't know. But we need more entrepreneurship though. You know what I mean? Like, we need more small businesses. We like, if COVID taught us anything, is we need more manufacturing stateside. We need more, like, America 40 years ago was not a service-based country. Now it's all service. It's all restaurants and churches and software and developing and social media, this and that. Like, there's not a lot of, my friend Dean would love me saying this, but like there's like 3% of clothing is like made in America. It used to be extraordinarily higher than that. I don't know. I'm all about self-reliance.
No, I mean, like that's what made America extraordinary, right? Like we were self-sufficient and we didn't import products. We were basically we were like export oriented. And what you mentioned about like a life in the pre during the World War II in the 1950s and 1960s is so relevant. Like you could be in the same place for 40 years and then like basically get a pension and you don't have to worry. And like the one income could actually maintain a household. But now due to
Mm-hmm.
inflation, the removing of the gold standard and to a fiat monetary system, the continuous printing of money, and a debt-based culture. has led to the situation where in order to like live it up with the Jones, you have to basically have two incomes at the minimum. And even then, it's not enough. Like you're going into debt, and now you have to work one or two jobs, and it's like a spiraling process, you know? It's
Yeah,
a
for
different
sure.
world. It's a different world we're living in. So what you're saying is relevant.
Yeah, yeah, it's a completely different place, you know, like oh, and it's just like let's not even start talking about AI and however the hell that's going to change everything.
Oh man,
You know what I mean? Like,
I talked about AI with a lot like a few of my other guests, and like automation will take out even more jobs.
sure. I mean, lawyers should be terrified. Like, I can just upload all 1,000, law books for every state or whatever to some database and just have a digital lawyer.
Wow.
A digital lawyer without all the language bullshit they throw at you to sound important.
Like that sounds it sounds so like absurd on one hand and it's so relevant and true on the other. Like what an age we're living in, aren't we, Michael?
Yeah,
It's
I,
so
I mean, it's never felt better to be blue collar. You know what I mean? Like, ain't no robot gonna stop doing what I do. You know what I mean? They can't stop me. Robots can't do what I do.
okay, so Michael, like just to continue, like we like you know how America was in the 1950s and 1960s. How do you think would America be in 2050s and 2060s with the full implementation of AI? Like let's say somebody had to ask you for your prediction of the future and how it's going to change the economy altogether. Like what would you tell them?
I don't know. It's an interesting question, right? Because like it could go like, I mean, best case scenario, worst case scenario, or somewhere down the middle. You know what I mean? And so, like, I think if we were going to go somewhere down the middle, and you have to understand too that I'm like biased towards sustainability, right? So I'm always looking into the future because the things that I'm doing now, in sustainability and stuff like that, I want to affect the future, and according to Governor DeSantis, I'm a green zealot, radical green zealot, whatever that means. Um, and so 2050 for me means that we have finally figured out through innovation and proper resource management with AI how everyone can have this American style quality of life, right? Clean water, cleaner food, you know, like what is a good life, right? Like it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So like we need sustainable, affordable housing. We will have smart houses. You know what I mean? Like maybe I'll have windows that can completely black themselves out, and I can actually live in darkness at nighttime when I want to and have my circadian rhythm properly. Like there's so many of these sci-fi movies that make the future look awesome, but it's like, are we creating the future that's more like Star Trek, where it's like super high tech, tons of AI. Um, I'm not trying to say like cashless society or anything like that, but
We're
um,
heading there.
it feels like we're heading there. Like I wonder who will control those cashless societies, right? Like, will it be an open source thing like Bitcoin or otherwise? Um, but yeah, I hope in 2050 we're now using less than one planet's worth of resources, because at present, if everyone lived like Americans, we'd need 5 planets just for the resources. And so I think like that's part of the goal is to figure out how to have by 2050 a sustainable leap forward and still have an awesome existence, like without living in loincloths and mud huts. Not that I think that would be a bad thing, but I don't think that most people would enjoy it. You know what I mean? But yeah, like I wonder, what does clothing look like? What kind of dyes are we using for clothing? What does our grocery stores look like? What does the packaging look like? Like, is plastic waste still a huge issue? What are we doing with the synthetic stuff that's creating microplastics and stuff? And so it's like by 2050, have we once again restored the Earth's ability to create life properly? and all the cycles are proper, and then we can just kind of live in abundance, right? Because as human beings, we should be able to like supercharge the natural processes of nature and live in harmony with it, rather than what we're doing now, which is kind of fighting nature and making, all these dead zones, green deserts and things. I don't know if that answers your question, but a
So
beautiful future is what I see with AI included.
I agree with you, but however, there's two modes of thought, right? There's like the old way of doing things and the new way. Like whenever you have like the Industrial Revolution when it happened, right? And there was like a massive technology change. Many people lost their jobs for a period of
Sure,
time, and a lot of people
for
had to
sure.
recalibrate and they had to learn new skills. But like
Yeah.
right now, there's like a movement and a counter movement. There's a movement to the future in America and the Western world, and a movement that's basically stuck in the ways of the past.
Hmm.
And in the middle, we're in this transition time when massive, especially with automation, where many people will lose a lot of jobs. And then
Yeah.
what are they going to do? Like they have to learn new skills, but they're used to doing things a certain way. And then this is where it's like a danger zone where it create a lot of unrest and a lot of chaos. But I don't know, what would be your opinion on that?
I mean, my opinion is that like things change, So like the first example that popped into my mind while you were talking was, so here we have, instead of 7-Eleven, we have Żabka. It's like translates to frog. And so in Żabka, they introduced um basically like a self-checkout, right? And so now it's not that the person who works inside Żabka has nothing to do, right? And it's also not that there needs to be zero people inside of Żabka. So now it's more or less his job. Like before, he had to run the cash register and do customer service and clean and sort and stock shelves and do all these other things. Now he just has one less thing to do. And now he can concentrate on really making the store look good, really keeping the shelves stocked, and like the place just looks so much better. It functions so much better now that the burden of constantly taking care of clients is sort of off of his shoulders. And so, like, I just, I wonder, it's like at one point, a bunch of blacksmiths lost their jobs because there was a lot less horses being used. You know what I mean? And then those blacksmiths, they learned how to hammer sheet metal, and like make bumpers for cars or whatever. And so I think that there are there's always going to be jobs for everybody. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are talking about, 15% of the world has an IQ like under 80 or something like that, which means that they're
That
so
is
unintelligent, they're not even allowed to go into the army, which is pretty low intelligence, I suppose. And those people even have some employment. So, it's like I see all like these, like they have robots now that can perfectly pick a raspberry without hurting it. You know what I mean? And like that's pretty wild, you know? And so like I think that so many things are going to be crazy automated, like greenhouses automated, planting seeds automated, harvesting fruits and vegetables automated. Um, like all of the kind of the dumb, terrible shit can just be automated. But then what do you do with all of those people who would normally do those like easy labor, right? The answer is I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like I think that like any person can learn a trade. You know what I mean? Like we will absolutely have 3D printed buildings. We already do. But it will take off, so I just think that there's just going to be an evolution. There's always going to be some kind of technology displacing jobs, and there's always going to be some new task that needs to be done because of it, you know? So,
Yeah, I mean that's
yeah,
that's just how like you're right, that's how history has always been, right? Like you
right.
always have
Sure.
these technological revolutions and then you have this transitions, but then you have the new future and it's always about are you going to adapt and are you going to accept or are you going to be stuck in the old ways? Because
Right.
and it's always painful change, but ultimately when you go through that period, like it leads you to a higher level altogether. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Michael, is about sustainable, eco-friendly entrepreneurship connected with the
Mhm.
future. Like, how do you see the intersection of automation and sustainable entrepreneurship going forward, or do you think there's going to be something else?
Well, I think that well, this is what I've been telling everybody, and no one has been able to refute me. Like sustainability is not going away. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to slow down, you know? So like even in I'm gonna turn my camera here a little bit. So I noticed there's the sun's moving in my window, so now you don't have to see half my face anymore. But so sustainability is not going away. Like even in a down economy, sustainability is not going away. It's it is like the focus right now. And so I think that the more sustainability minded you are as an entrepreneur, the more relevant you will be for the future that's trying to be built. You know, like I mean, there's a lot of money, frankly speaking, in the transition from just like there was a lot of money from steam and coal to petrol and plastics. There's going to be a big push into sustainability, and I think that it's being politicized right now because everyone's saying, oh, it's only the tyrants want things to be sustainable, right? Again,
I was thinking the same
yeah,
thing because basically like your the wording that you use is people like a lot of people will be like, oh, Green New Deal or something like that, when really you're just being environment friendly, but you're also doing business and entrepreneurship in intersection with that, you know?
yeah, yeah. I think I said this the other day on TikTok. I posted my first TikTok video because I got angry, and it's like it's not radical. You know what? Oh, scratch that thought. We human beings should be able to live to be 120. Like apparently, our meat suits are designed to be able to expire around the age of 120, which is wild. It's wild because you look back at, you know, in the 1940s, people in India were living until their early 30s. You know what I mean? My great grandparents all died in their mid 50s. They were all born in Poland and they immigrated to an industrial section of America and they worked in an industrial sector and they all died in their 50s. You know what I mean? My grandparents all died in their early 70s to late 80s, early 90s. You know what I mean? And it's like we've created a world right now that's so funded by greed in some form or another that we would rather slowly poison ourselves, which is exactly what we're doing, so we can have some profit, you know? And I just wonder to myself, like, can't we do both? Like, can't we do business in such a way that it increases our quality of life and it increases the quality of our biosphere and makes a profit? How crazy. How
Michael,
crazy.
you brought up such a relevant point because literally, like a lot of like the lot of people in the oil industry, right? They actually use science and they make multiple reports to discredit environment-friendly policies, and they all for the sake of money. Because even like politics, everything is run by money. Like money
Sure.
is just going to be the influencing factor in everything. Like everybody becomes biased on what makes profit in today's world. So we have to create the practical thing we can do is we create profits through sustainability, and we got to find a way to
Mhm.
do that, and that's the way it's done. But there's a lot of like people, a lot of like big corporations that don't want that to happen because they're already making so much money with the way they are with the way they're doing things now.
Mhm. Frankly though, like I don't know if I mean, I can't say whether I agree with it or not, but like there's this whole like ESG movement and all this other stuff, which I'm not a part of. But from what I understand from it, shareholders of banks are demanding that and I've talked to bankers, that's why I'm saying this. So it's not really the banks. It's the shareholders of banks that are demanding that the banks only do business with businesses that aren't making things worse. Like they're only, so like if you, let's just say, you're like, okay, I want to start up a paper mill and I require 150 million to do it. I want to go to the bank to make it happen. So you go to this big commercial bank and you say, hey, we want to start a paper mill. And they say, well, look, if you don't have this many sustainable points, we're not going to fund your project, right? Like if you can't prove that by producing XYZ that you're not going to devastate the landscape, then we're not going to fund your project because our shareholders want it, therefore we want it. And then we also have, laws being put in place that are doing extraordinary things, So like I live in Europe where things are way more progressive. And I think it was December December 22, December 22, the European Union started talking about banning products on imports that result in deforestation in the country of origin, right? So, and so for me, being in sustainability and being in packaging, I'm always thinking about these wooden forks and knives. The fork that doesn't really work like a fork and the knife doesn't really work like a knife. But
Yeah.
either way, we fumble through it. And that is all pretty much, a lot of it is made in India or China from wooden veneer, similar to how toothpicks are created, but instead of chopping them into toothpicks or chopping them into matchsticks, we're punching out the shapes of forks and knives. And so it's like if the company producing that can't prove that they're using less forest than the forest can replenish itself, then it's banned from import to the European Union. And so then at the same time here in the European Union, so in Poland, for example, the trees in some form or another, so forestry in Poland became so prohibitively expensive that they started importing wood from Argentina to make paper here in Poland. So they import the trees from overseas and then turn them into paper here, And so it's like, I don't know, there's this weird globalization movement that I've witnessed since being a kid where, where are you, by the way? Which state are you in?
Florida.
So you're in Florida. Okay, so Florida, oranges, awesome. California, oranges, awesome. But like, have you ever gone to the store in Florida and seen oranges on the shelf from a different country?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, well, I did in California, So I'm in California, also the land of oranges and avocados and almonds, and I see an orange from Peru. For what? Like there's oranges in our backyard. Well, probably because by the time you bought them from Peru, put them in a container, brought them to California, paid all the import fees and stuff, you were saving maybe 5 cents per pound or whatever it was. But either way, that was that savings. You know what I mean? And so we're so bent as a society, especially in America, at maximizing the profit that we refuse to let go of that 5 cents. You know what I mean? Like if you can create a t-shirt in America for $10, but you can import a shirt for $9, why wouldn't you do it? Like you'd be stupid with finger quotes not to do it. You know what I mean? But then the result of importing versus supporting your local economy is drastically different. You know what I mean? And that happens to me all the time. Like one of my favorite news stories recently is I had an entrepreneur, they're selling a meditation pillow on Amazon. They're buying the meditation pillow, they're selling it for 35 euros. They're buying it from China for 5 euros. By the time they buy it from China, have it shipped, pay for import, VAT, and taxes and all that other stuff, it's about 10 to 11 euros per unit. Now, I could have made it here in Poland, Polish labor, European fabrics, better zippers, better fabric, better quality. It would have rated higher on Amazon and it would have cost €1 more per unit. And they didn't call me back. Like they could have actually charged 40 euros instead, but it was like that €1. So like we're like allergic to spending more. And so like what I kind of do in my own world, right? Because sustainable materials are more expensive. I try to save money with process efficiency, right? Like I don't try to save money on materials, right? Like the materials I use dictate the price of the products that I can offer to the market, and there are buyers for those products. But I save money in being efficient. I don't save money by cutting costs on materials. It's a losing game. Like that's why China is so powerful now because the world has made China their factory.
No, I mean, Michael, you bring up such a relevant point about the global economy. And I would like to add, like in America, we have a very individualistic, profit-oriented culture when it comes to business. So what you're saying is right. The culture is about profit above everything else. It's not about sustainable. Like there's a huge section of the population in America that is environment friendly and sustainable, but there's not enough amongst them that are doing business. Like it's been polarized to such a way that people that seem to do business seem to be on the right,
Mm,
and then the right is associated with the oil industries and all of that. So like people see it in terms of that polarity lens, but in reality
yeah,
you can do both. But the fact of the matter is, in America, at least I don't know much about Europe. Like it is an individualistic culture that is based on profits above everything else, and there has to be a counterculture, but it's just too slow to emerge, you know?
yeah, yeah. It's interesting, right? Because like I'm not like a I'm not really like a consumer person. You know what I mean? Like I'm not really into consumerism. Like this t-shirt, which is organic cotton, I have like 40 of them, all in different colors. Some of them are in the same, right? But it's like all I have to do is just walk into my closet and pick the rightmost side t-shirt. And I know that's the t-shirt that's been in my closet the longest. And that's whatever color it is, that's the color I'm wearing today. You know what I mean? Like I did not choose to wear orange on this recording. It just so happened that I picked orange this morning when I took my daughter to school, you know? And so like I like we have this consumerist society and we have this profit driven society, and you're right that I consider myself to be pretty centered, and because I'm centered I'm leftist to the people on the right and I'm far right to the people on the left, and that's always a funny argument. It's like it's not even I'm an enigma, bro. Like I don't do sports. I've never played a team sport. I mean, I played soccer for like 2 years in elementary school, and I tried playing soccer my freshman year, but I just hated it. Like I hate the tribalism. I hate the the color wars. You know what I mean? Like Jesse Ventura wrote this book, The Democrips and the Republicans, and I thought it was a hilarious play on words, and it was a great book. But it's like I don't know. We used to be way more focused on just how to make our lives better rather than who's right and who's wrong, and everyone's got their own perspective, and this counterculture like people like me who are in the counterculture, right? Like they go to Burning Man and they take mushrooms and they I don't know, whatever. They want socialism or whatever. They want communism in America or something like that. But it's just like someone needs to create. Someone needs to make things. Someone needs to provide for the society and the culture. And like there just seems to be now people just want to sit around, have a job, and get paid for as little effort as possible. You know what I mean? But of course, there's the counterculture of people who they want to work their ass off. They want to improve their society. They want to improve their culture, and I don't know, they want to make things better. So I don't know. I, I hope that more people wake up. Right now I'm working on a book that's about manufacturing because we need more manufacturers. And we don't just need more manufacturers doing super crazy high tech stuff. We need people making chairs, tables. We need people making the basics. You know what I mean? And it can be an artisan doing it in his garage. It can be a couple of people doing it in, well, actually, you know what? There's this place in Portland, Oregon, where if you want to start your own textile brand, you can go there and use all of their machines. So like you and your friends could go tomorrow to Portland, Oregon, five of you, and start your own clothing brand and start sewing your own clothes and purses and accessories and stuff. It's like it's amazing how easy it is to get into manufacturing too. Like especially with textiles, it's like you just buy $1,000 sewing machine and you can turn some cheap fabric that you bought from Texas, you know, with a sewing machine into value added products that make great margins. I don't know. They're just where there's a will, there's a way. You know.
So, Michael, one of the to add to this, right? Like, so you're talking about manufacturing, and America used to be a manufacturing like powerhouse, but then what
Hmm.
happened is they realized that labor is cheap in third world countries, and it's just so much more easier to make profits in third world countries. Like, if you outs as a company owner, like if you look at it from the perspective of the entrepreneur, like if you're a company owner and like you basically hire employees in third world countries, or like you basically outsource the manufacturing, it's the products get made for much cheaper and you just make more profits that way. So like and like basically with the monetary system becoming fiat monetary since 1971, where it was taken out of the gold standard, it's not backed by anything tangible. The banks are just printing money, so it's becoming more expensive to manufacture in the U.S. and everybody here has a higher standard of living, so they expect to be paid more. So from your
Hmm.
perspective, like what do you think would be like an effective solution to deal with that?
I think the first thing that it comes down to is like the business model itself, right? Like can you make it work? You know what I mean? Like um yeah, we have become a society that would rather pay $1 for a pair of socks rather than $10 for a pair of socks. It's
It's
my
just the culture. It's basically
it,
been ingrained by years and years of like individualistic
yeah.
self-centered type of thing.
My wife said something really interesting once, and she's Polish and she doesn't think like an American at all. But she said to me, she's like, we're really lucky that because like we're not like I'm not a rich person, like I'm not uber wealthy, you know what I mean? Um, but at the same time, I'm not super poor, right? And she had said that it's absolutely harder to be poor. And here's the example that she used because I asked her why. She's like, poor people buy stuff when they need it. And the example she used was a winter coat, right? So right now we're in summertime, and if people are smart, they're buying stuff off the liquidation racks from the winter. That's what we do, right? So it's like we have money, and I have the sense to think ahead, knowing that what, the coat that I was using last winter is on his last leg, and I'm going to need a new coat next winter, right? But I have enough disposable income to say I'm going to buy this winter coat now, and I'm going to let it sit in my closet, yeah, and I'm probably going to pay 70% less for that winter coat because it's being liquidated, right? It's something that the stores couldn't sell. So instead of it being $200, it's $50, you know? But some people, poor people, or lower middle class, whatever you want to call it, right? They'll say, you know what? It's winter now and I'm cold and I need a new jacket and I want to look cool this winter. I'm going to buy winter coat 2024 that's $250, just came out hot off the rack. You know what I mean? And it's like it's that kind of thinking that's kind of locked people into the lives they've made for themselves, you know? And so yeah, I think like there are plenty of people who have an amazing life making $20,000 a year. You know what I mean? Like they've figured it out. They don't need a Mercedes. They don't need the newest car. Like I read this book. Everybody should read it. Like The Millionaire Next Door, something along those lines. And there was an interviewee in the book, and he talked about he's a millionaire, right? That was the point of the book. He's a millionaire, and every year, when he gets a car, um, he always buys a car that was a company lease that's 3 years old, and so it's basically hit maximum depreciation. It was a company car, so someone probably didn't beat the shit out of it. And so you have that initial seed money to buy this 3-year-old car that's lightly used, right? Probably had a lot of highway miles on it because it was a company car. And then every 3 years, he does it again. And so you might end, so if you do the math, you might end up spending 120, $150 a month to always have a car that's between 3 and 6 years old. That never, like a car that's 3 to 6 years old now, does not have problems with the battery, problems with the water pump, problems with power steering, problems with, suspension and linkages and everything that you get with like a 20-plus-year-old car. And like I thought that was so smart. That's what we did. So once I read it, that was the first thing we did with the money when me and my wife got married. We bought a car that was an old lease that was 3 years old, and it's a great car. So and it's paid off. Like we paid cash for it, and then in 3 years, um, so we're coming up on it. We will get another car that's 3 years old. Like we'll never have a brand new car for what?
No, I mean, ultimately, the main just essence of what you're saying, Michael, is mindset is everything. And from your
Mm,
mindset stems whether you're going to be abundant or you're going to have scarcity. And it's all about how you think and how you do things. And ultimately, culture is about a collection of mindsets. And that's
yeah.
how true change occurs, right? But
Mm.
Michael, on a different note, like since the time is coming short, right? I wanted to ask you about your company. Could you tell me and the audience a little bit more about Natural Materials Unlimited and the premise of what it does and what it's about?
Yeah, so we first started the company to make this product called hemp wick. It is a waxed yarn that people use to light pipes and cigarettes and fires and whatever. That's a whole nother story. But what had happened is we started making hemp wick for other brands, right? So white labeling or private label manufacturing or contract manufacturing, whatever you want to call it. Like most brands don't make their own thing. They outsource the manufacturing of, and so companies outsource to me. And what had happened is I started asking the companies that I was selling to, what other things are you looking for? Like, what do you need? What could you do? Like, how could I service you more? And they asked me a simple question. They were like, could you make a dog collar from hemp? And I was like, I don't know, but sure, let's find out. And so then me using my creative problem solving abilities, you just you start scouring the internet looking for the nomenclature, like nobody knows that a dog, I mean, not nobody, but unless you use inside language, like a dog leash is made from webbing, webbing. Like that's the industry term for this woven belt or a fabric tape, whatever you want to call it, but it's webbing. And so it's like, okay, well, all right, can we find natural webbing? Can we find webbing made from organic cotton or hemp or linen or whatever? And it's like, okay, yeah, the answer is yes. And so then all of a sudden we started turning into like this sustainable product development company where companies would come to us with an idea or a product, and we would walk them through the available materials or the limitations of materials, and we would explain when to use plastic, when to use metal, when to use leather, when to use fake leather, when to use linen, or when to use recycled cotton. And we specialize in not doing anything from synthetics, right? Like none of our products make microplastics. And then we export all over the world. And so we're always looking for small and medium enterprises to to come start a project with us that we can, help them procure sustainable materials, or we can produce things for them. So a lot of the stuff that we do is leather or fake leather based, paper or textile based. And by textiles, I mean anything that you can think of with these fabric tapes or yarn or rope or textiles. We do it. Like we don't make shoes. We don't do crazy complicated things. But if somebody did need shoes, I know a guy who makes shoes. Yeah, in Poland, I know someone who does everything. So it's nice.
That is awesome, Michael. And Michael, are there any other projects other than this that you're doing that you want the audience to get a glimpse into?
Yeah, right now we're working on vertically integrating. So we're working on acquiring land and trying to vertically integrate fiber production from industrial hemp so that we can use these fibers for making yarns for textile use and also making pulp for paper and packaging. So I believe that like actually everything that we do is based on cellulose. So cellulose, like cotton is like 99% cellulose. Hemp fibers are cellulose. Paper is cellulose. So like we don't really think about it a lot, but it's like you can either grow materials to make stuff or you can mine and refine materials to make stuff. Or you can, pull it as a crude oil out of the ground and make something from that too. And so I prefer that my materials are grown from the planet, which always means that it's some kind of cellulose based thing. And so that's what I'm leaning on. Cellulose, sustainable cellulose. Uh, that's the plan.
So Michael, how can our audience kind of connect with you and get to know more about you and your work and everything that you do?
If you would like to, I encourage, people can contact me directly. Like my personal website is myname.com, michaelklepacz.com. We also have naturalmaterials.eu. If people are super interested in it, like I usually give out my phone number to people. Actually, if people watch this recording, you'll see it down there in my Zoom link. You can message me on WhatsApp. I'm always open to talk to curious people, people who want mentoring, people who are interested in entrepreneurship, who are interested in manufacturing and stuff. I always have time to talk to people.
Michael, that is great because, like we need more pioneers like yourself who are into sustainable entrepreneurship because I am pretty sure this is the future. Like in the 21st century, like this will be the future of how entrepreneurship will be. And it is the only way if we want to have like a planet that we can live on and also live an abundant lifestyle. And I'm really glad that you are doing this because there's somebody looking at this who will be probably inspired by what you're doing and they'll want to take that step as well. And I do hope that you take the time to come back to this show at a later time, you know?
Anytime, anytime. Yeah, I encourage people to look up, look up Six Sigma, look up triple bottom line thinking and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of really good things happening in sustainability and just proper resource management that it is actually interesting. That even if you're not really into it, you could use to make yourself more useful in your career. You could use it to make your company more profitable. There's lots of things that we could do. And I appreciate you inviting me to come talk with you, and I'm always happy to come back. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Michael. And I want to conclude this episode by letting my fellow extraordinary Americans know that, hey, look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us, and it's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now. Hey everyone, thank you for watching Extraordinary America. If you like what you see, please do subscribe to our podcast and share it with others. Remember that the best investment that you can make in your lifetime is in your own financial education, for it is knowledge that truly sets us free. Also, remember that inflation is diluting your purchasing power, which in turn increases financial bondage. The practical thing to do is to protect the loss of your purchasing power and invest in precious metals or the right cryptocurrencies. Lastly, never forget that you are an extraordinary American. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.